In a time of growing activism, populism, and social unrest, I ask myself if it's a good time to stir the pot. With a question. What if the people who we think are funny and whom we love because they're funny were actually just a bunch of anarchists? What if these guys sounded like these guys? You'd never think so, right? Stand-up comedians aren't serious, and they're not violent. They don't smash windows. But what if they did? What if the windows they smash are just the windows in our mind? What if there is some kind of parallel, say between two writers like Noam Chomsky and Howard Zinn, and stand-up comedians like Chris Rock or George Carlin? What would it mean if there is a link? What would that tell us?
My upbringing, the family that I grew up in, the neighborhood that I grew up in, the working in a shipyard made me, you might say, class conscious. I was very conscious of the fact that we live in a class society of rich and poor and a lot of people in between, a lot of nervous people in between, not knowing which way they were going to go. And
thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, tell you what. Now, to balance the scale, I'd like to talk about some things that bring us together. Things that point out our similarities instead of our differences. Because that's all you ever hear about in this country is our differences. That's all the media and the politicians are ever talking about, the things that separate us, things that make us different from one another. That's the way the ruling class operates in any society. They try to divide the rest of the people. They keep the lower and the middle classes fighting with each other so that they, the rich, can run off with all the fucking money. Fairly simple thing, happens to work. You know how I describe the economic and social classes in this country? The upper class keeps all of the money, pays none of the taxes. The middle class pays all of the taxes, does all of the work. The poor are there just to scare the shit out of the middle class.
You write in the introduction to A Young People's History of the United States, over the years, some people have asked me, do you think that your history, which is radically different than the usual histories of the United States, is suitable for young people? Won't it create disillusionment with our country? Is it right to be so critical of the government's policies? Is it right to take down the traditional heroes of the nation, like Christopher Columbus, Andrew Jackson, Theodore Roosevelt?
It's true that people have asked that question again and again. Should we tell kids that Columbus, whom they have been told was a great hero, that Columbus mutilated Indians and kidnapped them and killed them in pursuit of gold? And should we tell young people that? And I think the answer is we should be honest with young people.
I always talking about my country. White people, this ain't y'all country. Y'all annexed it. You stole it from the Indians. I know you said you discovered it. You know how to use them slick-ass words. We discovered it. How you discover some shit a motherfucker already live at? Using that analogy, when I get off stage, I'm gonna discover somebody's car. Police like, did you steal it? No, I discovered it. I gave the indigenous driver a reservation in the trunk.
Do you think the Indians cared about independence from England? No. In fact, the Indians were unhappy that we won independence from England because England had set a line. The Proclamation of 1763 has set a line and said, you can't go westward into Indian territory beyond this line. And they didn't do it because they loved the Indians. They didn't want trouble, right? When Britain was defeated in the Revolutionary War, that line was eliminated. And now the way was open for the colonists to move westward across the continent, which they did for the next 100 years, committing massacres and making sure that they destroyed Indian civilization.
I mean, everything that we introduce to the world is shitty. Meaning white people. Because I really think that white people are from like another planet. Because when we came to America, it was so nice. It was just Indians, and they weren't even Indians. We called them that by accident, and we still called them that. Like we knew in a month that it wasn't Indians, but we just don't give a shit. We never correct it. We came here, they're like, hi, and we're like, hey, you're Indians, right? And they're like, no. No, this is India, right? No, it's not, it's totally other place. You're not Indians? No. Ah, you're Indians.
Go back a couple hundred years. When the American colonies separated themselves from England, one of their main tasks immediately was to become what was called treaty-worthy, to be treated by the European powers were of course the dominant powers, to be treated by the European powers as a nation which could enter into their system. So they had to become treaty-worthy, worthy of accepting treaties. And for the American colonies, that was extremely important because they had two major tasks. One was to maintain slavery, and the other was to wipe out the indigenous population.
Racism everywhere, everybody pissed off. Black people yelling racism. White people yelling reverse racism. Chinese people yelling sideways racism. And the Indians ain't yelling shit because they dead. So everybody bitch about how bad they people got it. Nobody got it worse than the American Indian. Everybody need to calm the fuck down. Indians got it bad. Indians got it the worst. You know how bad the Indians got it? When's the last time you met two Indians? You ain't never met two Indians. Shit, I have seen a polar bear ride a fucking tricycle in my lifetime. I have never seen an Indian family just chilling out at Red Lobster. Never seen it. Everybody want to save the environment. Shit, I see trees every fucking day. I don't never see no Indians. I went to the Macy's Thanksgiving Day parade this year. They didn't even have enough Indians for that shit. They had a bunch of pilgrims. When it came time for the Indians, they had 3 real Indians, and the rest was a bunch of Puerto Ricans with feathers in their hair. But fuck, shit, I know Puerto Ricans when I see them. You can't slip a Puerto Rican by me. That's not Pocahontas, that's Jennifer Lopez.
The effort to establish borders has been a very, very violent process. Europe was the most savage place in the world for centuries while the nation-state system was being imposed. But if you look around the world, where there are conflicts raging all over the place, virtually all of them have to do with nation-state systems and boundaries that were imposed by the imperial powers, almost everywhere. Take, say, the U.S.-Mexico border. That was established by a war of aggression in which the U.S. conquered half of Mexico. You take a look at the names of the cities in the southwest and western United States. San Francisco, San Diego, Santa Cruz, I mean, Spanish names.
They trying to tell our Mexican brothers and sisters that they need to stay away from the border. I don't understand that when California is Mexico. Listen to the name of it, California. San Diego, San Francisco, San Jose. If it starts with San, it's Mexican. Ain't no cities called William Brookshire.
After the worst atrocities that Saddam carried out, including the gassing of the Kurds and the rest, the U.S. and Britain happily gave him aid and support, including aid that enabled him to develop weapons of mass destruction, as they knew perfectly well. And at that time, nothing was considered wrong with this. That was a couple of months before he became the butcher of Baghdad and, conquering the world and so on and so forth. So those words are omitted, and we know that it's not his crimes that are the reason for the intended conquest, nor is it his development of weapons of mass destruction, which George Bush, #1, was aiding him in constructing at a time when he really was dangerous, as was Britain. This is just the ultimate hypocrisy. And a very great
Bush, trying to buy votes towards the end of the election, he goes around, selling weapons to everyone, getting that military-industrial complex vote happening for him. Sold 160 fighter jets to Korea, then 240 tanks to Kuwait, and then goes around making speeches why he should be commander-in-chief because we still live in a dangerous world. Thanks to you fucker. Been arming the fucking world, man. He armed Iraq. I wondered about that, too. During the Persian Gulf War, those intelligence reports would come out. Iraq, incredible weapons. Incredible weapons. How do you know that? Well, we looked at the receipt. But as soon as that check clears, we're going in. What time's the bank open? 8? We're going in at 9. We're going in for God and country and democracy.
Every war in humanity's history has been over some kind of motherfucking religion. You know what I mean? I don't get caught up in that bullshit because I don't think God ever wrote a Bible or a Quran. He didn't have to write no shit. He ain't no playwright. It's written in your essence. Because the Bible is written by men. The book of Peter, the book of John, the whole book about Jesus, but that nigga ain't wrote one book. God didn't write no book. It's written in your essence. Nobody ever had to tell you it's wrong to kill your mama. Somehow you born innately knowing that. Which means you born knowing right and wrong. So put the book down because it will fuck you up. You understand me? The Christians say Jesus is the message. The Muslims say it's Muhammad. I say who gives a fuck who the message is? Did you get the message?